Welcome, audience, to the Master Your Money Show, where we're looking at how to accelerate your business and really get in control of your finances. And got a really special guest on today, Scott Bywater. Sorry, and Scott is just a marketing strategist, expert in his field. And I know that one of his key areas there is his copywriting skills, which we just know is just so essential to any business owner to really get that right. Because if you're struggling to actually articulate your value, your customers aren't going to come to you, or they're not going to pay you the prices you want there too. So I knew having Scott on the show would just be perfect to really dive into that, because no matter what stage of business you're in, getting that right or tweaking that can just have a huge impact. So Scott, thank you for joining us on the show.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I think you might have had me confused with Luke Skywalker there. So
yeah. Maybe. That's not a bad comparison, is it?
That's right.
That's fantastic. So yeah, look, I know Scott, you run copywritingthatsells.com.au, and you've got a whole host of content around there to help people with that. But tell us a little bit about your journey in getting into marketing and getting into copywriting.
Yeah, so I mean, my journey was it really started back when I was 17. Yeah, in the coalface, which was door-to-door sales, marketing, the hardcore thing, and I think the reason why that was very advantageous, and when I started to actually write copy, it came very naturally to me, is because if you're, let's say you're telemarketing on the phones, you might be or even door to door, you're having like 30, 40 touches a day with people and having that opportunity to pitch to people. So what that naturally gives is an instinct for what sells or what doesn't via osmosis as a process there. Now, when I was about 24, I think it was, I went to a seminar, and they were like, and I decided to go into to set up a business. And long story short, I then at the end of that business, that was a real learning experience. I hung out a shingle as a marketing consultant, and then one day my wife's like, she sees this job in the newspaper. It was actually for Reader's Digest, and it was for a copywriter. I don't even know if she knew what a copywriter was at the time, but she's like, she had this woman's intuition thing. She's like, you have to go for this job. You have to go for this job.
Wow.
So anyway, I went along, and I sent in a thing with some sample copy. And as a marketing consultant, I was writing a fair bit of copy actually at that stage. But I sent it in. I had the meeting. The copywriting manager loved me. The recruitment manager did not love me, so I didn't get the job. But what it did give me is it gave me confidence to move into that field. And it was, in many ways, it was a blessing. And so from that time, I hung out a shingle as a copywriter, and I think I was starting from a fairly low base at the time, but I think I probably 10 times my revenue, literally like that.
Wow.
So, which goes a lot to say the power of positioning in the marketplace is really, really critical, because I was doing much of the same thing, but just position one way, your value to the right clients, your value all of a sudden shifts.
Wow.
So it was a interesting journey.
Yeah. And now copywriting itself has been around for quite a while now, hasn't it, as a business?
Yeah, so probably for about 18 years, 17, 18 years. So when I was about 24, I went into business, and I can't remember how long it took me to rebrand at that time. But yeah, so really, and so what I do now is either copywriting or coaching and marketing strategy sort of thing. So they're the sort of areas that I specialize in.
That's great. And was that just a natural kind of progression through that kind of first experience of getting into copywriting then?
I think as a copywriter, you need to understand. If you can't really be a really good copywriter and not understand marketing strategy, in my view, because if you're talking to someone, you need to know where they're going to invest their money. Yeah. So if you come to me and you say, listen, Scott, I want you to write me some Facebook ads, and I ask you a few questions, and I work out that you're trying to target CFOs of multi-million-dollar corporations, you shouldn't advertise. As a first point, I probably wouldn't recommend you start with Facebook as an example. So you've got to have the understanding. You've got to have the generalist knowledge to actually understand. Okay, where should you focus where should you be focusing your attention?
Yeah.
Because bottom line, with any ad, any marketing piece, you're looking at 40% of the success is the list or the targeting. So if you target in the wrong place and you have great copy, it probably like 20% is probably actually in the creative. A lot of it comes down to 40% targeting, 40% offer, and 20% in the creative. So if you stuff up the targeting and you like if you make errors with the targeting and the offer, then the creative isn't going to work.
Right.
So it's really critical to understand those aspects of things.
Yeah. So it's a bit like the icing on the cake sort of things. You got to get everything else sorted first, and then that's kind of the last bit.
Yeah, they all come together, but like these days there's a proliferation of where everyone thinks they can write copy because I can get in and type. Do you know what I mean? So like if you can type, you can write copy. But there's layers of depth to it in terms of, for example, really you shouldn't write copy unless you've got like when you're writing copy, 40% of your time should be really going into research, and then 40% is into writing and 20% into editing. That's as a general rule. But in reality, I have found it's probably less time on the writing and more on the editing. The writing is the easy part. It's actually the writing is totally the easy part. It's the editing and the research, which is where the real mastery is required.
Yeah, that's I mean, certainly for any business owner to be able to speak your pitch is so important too, but then be able to write it out in copy is just essential. Because we're focused on the show on the entrepreneurial side and in the financial side. I know a lot of people in terms of their marketing strategy, it's a hard decision to make around what do they spend, what do they do with their finances and spending on marketing too. So I'd love to dive into your kind of experience and wisdom around that a bit, about what kind of people need to be doing. And like it sounds like from what you're saying, the research is going to be key, but tell us a little bit more about where to direct the kind of finance side, particularly for someone who might be starting out as a business by themselves or a side hustle, or maybe they've got one or two employees, but they want to take that kind of next step in their marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think the key is always context. Yeah, so someone might come out there and say, and particularly these days we hear it's changed significantly over the last 10 years. Like when I started, you had Yellow Pages and direct mail, newspaper ads, TV. Like there wasn't many mediums. Now we've got about 37 different mediums to choose from, probably a lot more than that. But so it's like, well, where do you actually invest your attention and where do you invest your funds? And I think that one of the best rules for this is look at, if you've been going for a little while, enough to have a handful of clients, and I know you'll probably have people listening who are in the very startup space and people who've been going for a little while. But what I would suggest is look at who your best clients are right now. So you go to them and you basically go, oh, isn't this interesting? I'm getting, my best clients right now who value my business and all of that sort of thing. They are, 7-figure businesses in the legal industry, as an example. So you say, okay, that's interesting. So then you go to these 7-figure, these business owners, these your clients, and you have an interview with them. And you find out, why did they choose you? What do you do better than most other people? What are your biggest gripes with the website design industry, whatever industry you're in? If they could ask for anything and get it, what would they actually ask for? So you start to ask these, why did you buy from me? Why did you buy from me and not my competitors? And as you start to dive into that, you'll start to get insights, right? And they're like, oh, I love the way. The reason we chose you is because you offer amazing graphic design, or because you have a real ROI focus as a web designer and nobody else did. So then what you get clear on through this, and this is research again, right? So then what you get clear on through this research is you start to go, okay, so as a result of this research, maybe I need to position myself as the ROI web guy for 7-figure legal professionals. So all of a sudden you've got a unique positioning, and you've got all this credibility from these legal people, and you can sort of and you can segue into that, and from there you go, well, how do I approach these people? It's not through, it's not maybe through Facebook ads, but it's maybe via LinkedIn ads or direct mail or et cetera, et cetera. And like I say, you may be in a totally different industry, and your top clients are 25 to 30-year-old women who want to get fit, and you're a personal trainer. So in that case, you ask them the questions, you're very clear on your positioning, and then you start running ads on Facebook, as an example, for that particular market. Because what I've found is a hammer is a really good tool, but it's not very good at chopping down a tree. And so it's different tools, different jobs. So the first thing we got to decide is what job needs to be done. Once we've decided the job that needs to be done, we pick the tool. Sometimes it might be LinkedIn ads, sometimes Facebook ads, sometimes Google, sometimes direct mail. So we choose the tool based on that. Now, in terms of from an investment side, what this does is, because we've done this research and we've got quite clear, and we're positioning ourselves differently, it has much higher odds. That strategy has higher odds of success, because you've got you're going out to the market. And the benefit with success is very lumpy. So a very small percentage of the things that you do are going to make up for the majority of your success. So if you make 100 phone calls tomorrow, probably one of those phone calls is going to make up 95% of the profit you're going to make from that exercise. Well, it's the same in many ways with marketing. So you want to be coming at it. You don't want to invest too much in any one strategy necessarily. So let's say with a 7-figure guy that you're focusing on lawyers, rather than going out and having one ad, one lead magnet, why not come at it from 6 different angles, create 6 lead magnets, and know that one of them is going to pull better than the others, or create one lead magnet and come at it from 6 different angles to maximize your odds of success. Keep the risks low, but know that once you've got a winner, we're asking the question, what's working, what's not, what's next? If it starts working, you throw more money into it. If it's not working, you take it out within reason. If you're doing like social media stuff, which is, let's say, branding stuff, and it's not costing you anything, let's say you're putting stuff up on LinkedIn and that sort of thing, that's a little bit of a different ball game. But then what's next? And that's really the process. So I know I talked for a long time then without coming up for breath. So I'll, hopefully I was hitting on some hot points.
No, there's some really good points in there about really finding out what's working, and then just diving into that too. And I thought that was really interesting what you talked about with creating the lead magnet, creating a range of lead magnets, maybe as an option there, so that you can actually test out which of those are your audience is actually looking for more. So, for a lot of people watching, that might be something that they should dive into, is looking at what knowledge and what skills you already have to start creating something of value. But then you also mentioned that you can present it a few different ways. So that's interesting. I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, because ultimately the thing is, we don't know what's going to work and what's not. Yeah, like it's a little bit like picking the stock market. I don't know what's going to go up next. Even the experts don't know what's going to go up next, right? With any degree of certainty. So we don't know. So what we want to be doing is we want to be maximizing options. And the way we do that is, let's say it's an ad let's say you're running some Facebook ads as an example, and you've got a lead magnet on how to make your website better. Well, you could just target business owners very generally and just go bang to everyone, or you could segment that into 6 different niches and target them differently, and you'll find that one niche will probably outpull another niche, and you could put 6 copy elements on it. You could show a before and after. Old website, new website. Why did the website on the left get double the return of the website on the right? You could let's say you've got this lead magnet and you talk about the best colors. Yeah, you could talk about the best color mix for a financial planning website as an example. There's a lot of different. You can spin that lead magnet in a number of different ways. You could talk about some studies that have been done by some association which show how many different pages you should have on a website. So there's lots of different angles and hooks that you could come at that same lead magnet from.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. We've covered a lot of area there in terms of the entrepreneurial side too. Now, one question I've been asking everyone who's been on the show is regarding their finances and their experience with money. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your first experience in dealing with money and how that's kind of shaped your journey into business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So is this my first memory or my first moment I was handling money, or what would you?
Probably you can go wherever you want because we'd love to hear this. We'd love to hear multiple stories as well. But what's your first ever memory of even experiencing money or dealing with money? Probably your youngest age of experiencing money.
I mean, the first memory I had was not. I wouldn't say it was a very positive one, but I remember going on holidays and my father was he would always complain that after the holiday we wouldn't have much money, and that always used to irk me. And I thought I don't really want to ever think or ever live like that. And I don't know if that then inspired me to become more entrepreneurial or that sort of thing as a result. But it's a really interesting one. So I think I recently read, which is a great book, by the way, and a great movie, Kyle Cease, and he's written a book called The Illusion of Money.
Excellent.
And it's I was quite impressed by it. But I think we all have a lot of emotion, tied up. There's a lot of emotion tied up to money, because money is, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, it's the number one human need, which is survival. Yeah. So there's a lot that's tied up in there. But that was my first real memory of money. And also, I was always inspired when I was young to run, to be quite entrepreneurial, like have garage sales and do all of that sort of stuff. And I remember once I took some Guns N' Roses t-shirts I bought in an auction for $20, and I sold them for like $5 or $10 each. So I got a pretty good return on investment on those Guns N' Roses t-shirts. So I wish I had have embraced that more. Like my family wasn't so entrepreneurial minded, so it wasn't like I went out there, and wasn't until I got to 24 that I really started to go into that entrepreneur space. But I wish I had reverse the clock, I would have loved to have started at about 14. So because I think if you can make those mistakes younger, it just gives you such a real head start.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting there as well. And was it something that transferring yourself out of the job into running your own business, what was that kind of process like at that age of 24?
Yeah, well, the reason I did it, I always wanted to, right? And I actually had a decent job. It was probably my highest paying job I'd had. But then I went to this seminar about starting a business, and the whole idea was, take over a business, which we took over for nothing, build it up, and then sell it for like $100,000 or something like that, which seemed like a big deal to me then. So I thought, we'll get it in, build it up, sell it. And that was a concept. But it wasn't. It was actually a very hard 6 months or whatever, because I didn't realize, when you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize, the staffing issues, and we actually did okay from a marketing perspective, but it was like we wouldn't have known if staff were taking money out of the till. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't have like a proper plan or anything like that. But what it did do is it got me to a stage where I had nothing, like zip, and I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent. And then I ran a classified ad in the newspaper, which I got on credit. It was like $18 or something. And that's how I started up the marketing consultancy.
Okay.
With that classified ad. So so that's what the experience was like. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that approach.
Yeah.
But it did, I think the advantage is it got me into that entrepreneurial space, which I think at a young age, which I think it's good to get into it before you have a family, before you have kids, before you do all that sort of thing, because it's much, much harder to make the leap, I think, when you've got higher expenses that you're staring at. Not impossible, of course, but it's much harder psychologically to make that leap than when you've got $400 in expenses a week, as compared with if you've got $4,000 in expenses a week. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
that pressure's on there right from the get-go, higher stakes, and you've got more people to support and look after that too, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Now, another question I've been really asking about people, and your story is really interesting there, because a lot of the speakers have had some moment, mostly in their teenage years, that kind of that they'd stepped out and they were doing garage sales, like you were saying, or running a small kind of business in the neighborhood or something like that. I'd really like to hear from you now about the one key thing that's made a difference to your entrepreneurial world, and then also to your financial world as well. And if you could just pick the one biggest thing in both of those categories, we'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, so in terms of the entrepreneurial world, what's made the biggest difference? I think it's, I think there's probably one or two things. One is the ability to sell. I think that's a very important one. So, so doing door-to-door sales and telemarketing at a young age, I think definitely helped me, because if push comes to shove, and like there'll be times in your business, I've found there's been time in my business where you're in massive demand, but then the market shifts and things happen. If you can get on the phone, it's literally the best backdrop to be able to make things happen, and I guess it's a very powerful weapon or tool, if you like, is that phone. So I think that, and the other one is mindset. Like like having that, having that mindset to always, I think it's just a mindset of positivity. I think if you didn't have that as an entrepreneur, it'd be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because when there's stuff going on, you've got to be able to see, hey, I can get through this.
Yeah.
I can get through this, and you focus. So, in terms of the other one was in regards to money.
Yeah.
To money.
Money management or financial mindset, just how we think about money, or which then affects how we deal with it. But key area there.
I think in terms of, I don't think that much about money management. My theory has always been you bring it in and it takes care of itself. But over the last few years, I've become more and more aware that the investing the money is really critical. And my wife has been very good at that, at making sure the money all goes into the right places. Because I think it's very easy to just earn it and it all goes out. But I will say this: if I was to advise around money management, it would be to put more money keep putting money back into the business, and to avoid spending money on dumb things. Because it's very easy to sort of say, hey, we're going to have this flashy car, or we're going to have this, all of this sort of thing. But that $50,000 that you put into a flashy car, as an example, you couldn't put that into advertising. And if you know what you're doing, turn that into $200,000, $300,000.
Yeah.
So I think particularly in those early stages of business, it's really important to invest that money make sure you're not investing that money into dumb stuff, because that will it'll push you, it'll stop your progress.
Yeah. Now that's a really interesting one, and I'm sure that's something a lot of the audience be wondering, how to deal with that, and what to do in terms of rewarding themselves when they're starting to get success too, or do you have any suggestions there on how to kind of work out the priority of things there?
I think it's working out the 80-20 of what makes you happy. So for me, like I don't really need much. I mean, my wife needs more than I do, but I don't, got a car, a good book to read, a cup of coffee. I'm pretty happy, and travel. I like to travel.
Yeah.
But that's all I need. I mean, someone else, if it gives you that much joy to have a car, to have like a really fancy car, if it gives you that much joy and it makes you happy, I think it's self-awareness. If you want to invest, that you're prepared to invest another 300 hours of work, or you're prepared to forego the growth of your business to have that, then it's all about self-awareness, right? It's not about judgment of what's right, what's wrong, because everyone's different, and your happiness is the only thing that you can judge it by. But it's just like, I think the question is, well, let's say you make a whole heap of money and you say, do I invest in this fancy car for $100,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is, or do I put this back into advertising and seeing now and in the future what's going to bring me the most joy, right? What's going to bring me the most joy? Because that $50,000 could turn into $200,000, $300,000, or it could be a car worth $20,000 in 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is giving you a bit of a joy to write. If it's more important to have that joy for the next 3 years, but what I will say is, it's also playing the long game, right? Because almost every time, like, humanity is instinctually designed to play the short game. That's why we reach for the bar of chocolate, and I'm definitely not immune to this, but this is why we reach for the bar of chocolate instead of going to the gym. We know what's good for us. We ultimately know what's good for us. But what I will say is, every time I've played the long game, almost every time I've won. Almost every time I played the short game, I've lost. But we almost need to bump up against our human tendencies to play that long game.
Yeah.
Because the short game is watching Netflix. The long game is reading a book that might improve our career. Sometimes the long game can be watching Netflix. Sometimes the long game can be going home at 6 o'clock so we can spend time with our kids, because that means we're going to have a relationship with them in 10 or 15 years. Sometimes the short game can be working hard. So it's all about identifying our values and going, what's important?
Of course.
And then identifying the long game versus the short game.
Yeah. Yeah, look, that's great, Scott. Look, yeah, I'm so glad you touched on that point. Yeah, self-awareness and working out what is valuable to you is just absolutely key. Yeah, look, there's been some really great things covered there. I really like that you focus on avoiding the dumb things with your spending, but really consciously being strategic and thinking about, how can I actually, if I'm investing money into this business, what's going to give me the best return? That's great. Love it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Now I know you've put together a special gift, and you're giving it out to our audience on Facebook ad writing formulas, really focusing on that copywriting space. Listeners, they can get that for free. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's basically a PDF we put together about, because what I find is you'll often hear people, they advertise on Facebook and they're like, oh, Facebook ads don't work, or they didn't work for me, and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, what's going to make a Facebook ad work essentially is number one, having creative, which grabs people's attention, and knowing how to structure that creative, and the funnel behind the actual copy. Once they actually hit your page, what's a follow-up process? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what this does, it basically breaks down 3 winning Facebook ad formulas, so that you can basically look at that and apply them conceptually to your business. So there's examples in there and all that sort of thing, but you can go, I'll use that formula. That'll work for my accounting business, or my web design business, or my graphic design business, or whatever business that you're in. So that's what it is. I don't know if do you want the link?
I'll be sending the link out in the show notes.
Putting that out. No, perfect. Yeah, so that's basically what it is, and it'll take you through that process.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Look, Scott, we really appreciate having you here on the Master Your Money Show. We just covered some really key areas there in entrepreneurship and the financial side as well, particularly how to apply like these financial principles to your business as well as a practical there. So just want to thank you again for taking your time out to be here with us.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, Josh. It's been great to be here, and you've asked some. So I always find when I do interviews with someone who asks the right questions, it's just like more comes out, right? Because it's almost like that mastermind effect. So
thank you. Yeah, appreciate your responses there. And audience, stay tuned. We've got more episodes coming up of the Master Your Money Show, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. Take advantage of Scott's Facebook ad writing formulas there, and we'll speak to you shortly. Thank you again, Scott.
All right, thanks, Josh.